Good evening. Rather late at night, but I thought I must get this story across to you. Uh, was in a meeting this morning, and somehow the topic that we were discussing was about change. I think it all started by saying, how the city has changed and how, the people's sense and sensibilities have changed, not for the better, but for the worse. And they went on talking, but I recall when I was doing a program way back a couple of years for the Northern Railway in Delhi, and very senior people, experienced people. I think the average age in terms of experience was about 15 years, and of course, there were some people who were ready to retire as well. So there was this one gentleman who got up and said, "Sir, I have been in the service for 20 years, and it's just been terrible for me." I said, "How so?" He says, "Well, it's been a struggle. I've got this posting which is back and beyond. To top it all, I've got a boss who's absolutely very, very tough to work with. I mean, he wants to do his own way, and we just don't get along. It's very, very cumbersome. It's depressing, and it's eating into my own health now. I forget family life." So I asked him. I said, "Sir, how many years you been in the service? That too in the railways?" He said, "About 22 years now." I said, 22 years you've been in the railways. That's no small feat. And you are suffering. That means, am I to take it that you are suffering for 22 years? Because that's not possible. If you remove 3 or 4 years of your initial days in the service, that's been your learning cycle. I mean, you learn the ropes, you learn the system, then you start figuring out what works, what doesn't work for you. So even if we say that 15 years you've been working, and in short, you've been complaining. You've just been complaining about one thing or the other. So I told him point blank, "Sir, if you don't like it and you're miserable, why don't you leave?" I mean, which person, which human being in his right senses allows himself to be tortured day in and day out? I mean, what are you doing to your mind, body, and soul? So he says, "Sir, how can I?" I said, "Why can't you?" I said, "Just give me one valid reason why you can't." You know what he told me? I knew the answer, but I wanted him to say it. He said, "Sir, it's a government job. How can I leave it?" I mean, what more can you say? It's a government job. How can I leave it? Because it's a government job, no one can touch you or throw you out. And it's not done so easily. There's a huge process if you want to fire somebody. You're so secure that you don't mind taking the brickbats, you don't mind taking the onslaught that comes to you time and again, ruin your health, ruin everything that life has to offer, because it's a government job. I mean, I find that a little difficult to fathom and digest. Anyway, each person to himself. So I said, "So what do you want to do?" He said, "Sir, that's what I'm asking you." I said, "Look, in my experience, there are only three things. Okay, if you want to circumnavigate or go beyond." He said, "Tell me, sir." I said, "See, number one, you don't like your boss, change him. In short, you don't like a person, be it in the family, be it in the friend circle, be it in the workspace, change him. Get somebody else. You can't do that? Change the location. Move out of that place. Who's asking you to stay there? Get a transfer. Or change the job. You can't do that? What's left? The third thing, which I personally feel is the best and the easiest. Change yourself. Yes. Change yourself. Because that is the easiest. Because that is in your control." Then I asked him, I said, "Sir, tell me something. if you've been in the service for so many years, you know the rules and regulations. He says, yes. He said, as per my understanding, every 3 years or 4 years, every officer has to be take on a new posting. He said, yes. With that logic, your boss will go in 3 years or 4 years. Yes. With that logic, you will leave your boss in 3 years or 4 years. He said, yes. I said, then what's your problem? You can't stay with a person for 3 or 4 years. I mean, you've been living with your family for 35, 40 years, man. Bearing them and their nonsense. You can't bear one individual for 3 years or 4 years? Seriously? I said, okay. Then why didn't you do one thing? Why didn't you get him a job? Get him a better job. Where the salary is better, the posting is great, the position is great. Can you do that? No. So, it comes down to the same thing again. Which is, change yourself. Now, tell me something. Does everything have to be very, very bad all the time? No, right? Because the law is very clear. Nothing remains the same. What goes down has to come up, and what goes up has to come down. We have to prepare for both. When you are low, what do? When you are high, how long will you last there? Because you will come down. That is the law. So if you are able to understand that and work upon yourself and treat every moment as a journey, treat every interaction as an experience with another human being, not a boss, not a family member, not a friend. Those are just titles. Father, mother are just titles. With all due respect to them. But bottom line, they are human beings first. Roles later. And since they are human beings, they function differently. The boss is a human being. He happens to be your boss, which is not a permanent feature in your life. And neither are you a permanent feature in his life or her life. So when nothing is permanent, why get all worked up? If you understand that change is inevitable, the only thing that's consistent and constant and regular, it's change. You are changing every day, every minute, every second. It's just that you don't know it, but you are changing internally. Our cells are changing. And when I say you, I count myself as well. So the day you realize that change is inevitable, change is happening, change will happen whether you like it or not. But in order to handle change, it's better you first accept it and then see what you can change for yourself rather than try and change somebody else. There is no compulsion that you have to be in one place. There is no compulsion that you have to be with the same person. Because your life is your responsibility. Your life is a gift to you. How you make it or break it is entirely up to you. And that's where the change comes in. The change in your thinking, the change in your approach. It's worthwhile thinking about it. And trust me when I say this. When you understand how it's working for you, nothing is going to worry you in the future. In the sense, it's not going to be difficult for you. Yes, challenges, of course, but nothing impossible. The wisdom is going to guide you. And that wisdom comes by accepting that changing yourself, changing the way you think is the key. Give it a thought. Sleep over it.